Thank you for listening to part 4 of Made for Missions with Pastor Mel Perry. This week, Pastor Mel talks about her experience with the praying people of Africa and their amazing faith and productivity through the applied Word of God. Tweet and post about this podcast using the hashtag PastorJDO3 or JDO3 Podcast. And now, part 4 of Made for Missions with Pastor Mel Perry.
Okay, maybe the leadership thing that I was kind of concerned about, I may be more equipped for it. And I think that's the blessing that God gives to us. When we don't feel adequate enough, we have to lean on Him. And so I really had to lean on Him. And that was the first time I did leadership teaching. I had to learn to really lean on Him to say, okay, guide me in how I teach these individuals. And there are things that I'm able to teach them that over here we're like, I don't like that. I don't want to get, because it means that we have to make certain sacrifices that they're already willing to make. You know, they are willing to forego things that we don't want. I mean, like, think about the Daniel fast that many churches are on right now.
Yeah, we're doing it too. Yeah.
We're like, I don't want to
go without bread. Oh, Lord.
Yeah, I don't want to give up. But for them, it's like, well, that's just secondary. You know,
if this is what I need to give up to get here with God, fine. Yeah, count it that.
Yeah. And I mean, you will find people will pray all night. It's common, especially in Kenya or East Africa. I'll say Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda. It's very common for them to have Friday night prayers every Friday night and to find young people. And I'm not talking about like, okay, we'll pray from 6 to 7. I'm talking about like 6 to 3 in the morning or 4 in the morning and young people. I've had meetings with the young people like, oh, you know, the other group wanted to be here, but they couldn't because we were having, they call it kesher or kesher. They were having kesher in at the college in Mombasa and blah, blah, blah. So they couldn't be here. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they won't get back until about 4 this morning or such and such. And so it's very common to meet these people who are really, really passionate. And they build these ministries and these congregations that are thriving in places that you would say, oh, you can't thrive a ministry here. You can't build a ministry here. And I've seen it. I've seen that you can be, like I was saying, I've ministered in a leper camp. And the first time I went there, the guy, he had a little clinic. I didn't even know him. In fact, the pastor that I did the first leadership teaching, which is on the border of Kenya and Uganda, it's called Busia. He told me about this young man that had gone to the coast, which is the east of Kenya. And so I wind up going to his ministry a couple of years later. And so when I went, they had this clinic. It was under a tree and they were treating lepers. And it was an experience I will never forget. It was a life-changing experience. And they had this little bitty congregation. It was like, okay, that's nice. I went back, 4 years ago? And they had a whole complex now. They had land. Prior to that trip I'd gone before, they have a whole garden. They have a greenhouse. They have a school. They have a training school for women where they teach them how to sew and make things. They have a clinic, like a building with a clinic, and they've got the machines and everything. Their congregation is bigger, their building. I mean, just the things that they have. And the guy is he's younger than my sister, so I think he may be around 36 or something like that, him and his wife. And they built and established this thing that you would say, in this place, it can't thrive. But God gave him a vision. And it was like, you don't have anything to lose but praying and investing in this vision. And the place where he, I think the name of the place was like, the meaning was something like the forgotten place, or it was something really sad because these were lepers. And he said, we're going to call this place Blessed Camp. And so he went in and he just changed the name. He didn't even go there to be a pastor. He went there someone had told him about these lepers, and he went to show them a film one Sunday. And he went back to Mombasa because that's where he was living and working. And this is just maybe about an hour outside of Mombasa. And somebody came and told him the next week, the people were waiting for you under the tree. He was like, what? So he just started going back. He had a congregation that he was worshiping with. He was a part of a ministry, a very thriving kind of what we would say mega kind of church that he was a part of. And he was enjoying it. He wasn't the pastor, but he was a young man. Him and his wife were serving there, and they had, they were building up the clout and being able to, be a part of this ministry. And he felt the call and he went there, and God has just blessed him and prospered him. And at the same time, God has given him influence, not just amongst the ministers and churches there in the Mombasa area, but with people in Europe, people here in the States. So just yielding to God, and being willing to make those sacrifices that we act like they're struggles. They oftentimes, back to that other question, are we better off or they're better off? Sometimes they're better off because they know how to trust God, and they walk into success in a way that we just, we have to work it. They just have faith, and they begin to put the plan together.
Well, I was going to ask you one more thing. One of the things that I love to see is you dressed in your African garb. That does my heart good. My daughter, actually, when she was at Seton Hall last year, year before last rather, they did a project where they wore a hijab for one day to be able to identify with the Muslims there on campus. And she talked about how life-changing that day was. What is it like to go back and to dress like our brothers and sisters, to wear traditional dress, the traditional garb, and to, we act like our clothes are such a sacrifice if we can't wear this brand or this type of outfit that, oh my God, I'm so inconvenienced, or it's so hot there, how can they wear these type of garbs? And when you hear people talk about it, it's like, no, it was a beautiful experience. And it's something that I'll do again. So how did that impact you?
Well, actually, most of the clothes you probably see me in are Indian. I do wear African things too as well, but usually the tunics and the saris I wear a lot of. But I was wearing
the one I remember was blue. You were in a blue garment. It was awesome.
Okay, I'm not for sure that that could have been because I have a blue African and then I have quite a few blue Indian. But no, when I first went to Liberia, I think was when I first started wearing African clothes, and the Liberian clothes are very different. And I had some outfits made, and they were more in the Muslim tradition. They were long and straight, and it wasn't popular. I have never been a popular person, and because my parents, I guess because they weren't rich and they were kind of poorish, the pastors back in the day didn't make a lot of money. Yeah. So I didn't really worry about name brand. I was always very different. And I remember I would wear my African, this is before it was cool. So we're talking about the 80s and 90s. So at this time, we're talking the 90s, like 91, 92. And then I went to college. And so even there, and I would wear them, and the kids at school, at Sterling High School, they would kind of, like make little jokes about it. And my thing was like, boo, you ain't been to Africa. Yeah, I have. Yeah. But I always had that confidence because I knew that's where God called me. I always saw Africa as the pride of who I am. So I've never struggled with that. Even my grandmother would say, I am from no Africa. My maternal grandmother, and she did have immigrants from France. But I think they might have been like people who had come up from Africa, maybe in the 1700s or 1600s or something, and then migrated over. I don't know, but that side of the family, they do look a little bit different. They don't look African. So anyway, but my thing, I was always proud, of the Africanness. And even when I'm in South Africa, where there's this color divide of white and colored, which are the people who have mixed heritage and they're lighter skinned people most of the time. Even though some of them will try to guess, what I am. And then sometimes over there, they will call me a Black Indian or something, because they'll say, well, maybe you are Indian or maybe you're Black. They'll try to guess, but I always tell the colored people I'm African. I identify with the Africans here or the Black people here, because Black and African is different in South Africa. African means that you come from another country in Africa. Black means that you are the indigenous, you're more like the Zulus and Xhosas and so forth. So I will say, I'm one of them, and I love to wear the clothes. I've always had that pride. I love, and in fact, oftentimes I will preach in, usually it's the Muslim style, because it's the way it flows. So it'll usually be the Muslim dresses and whatever, but you can tell by the embroidery that it's African. And I'm always like proud, because that's a part of who I am. And I think because I've always had that heart for Africa, and I've gone, and my African friends tell me, they say, you are so African. It's not because I try to be, but because I've learned the culture and I ask the right questions. I don't make assumptions about them. I'm always listening, because if I don't know something, that may be a dumb question for me to ask you. So let me just, listen, and maybe I'll get the answer or figure out how to ask this thing properly. But they always tell me, you are African, you are us. And I think that comes from having that pride in the continent. For me, I probably have more pride in the continent, and this is sad to say, than I do, of the States. But that's because I understand the wealth of that continent, and when you see Africans who come over now, they don't usually move in our community. They preserve the pride of Africa. The Nigerians, they're going to stick together. They're not moving in Black communities.
Yeah.
None of them really move into our communities because they want to preserve that pride. The engineer, you're going to be an engineer. Don't even think about being a rap artist. I know a lot of people talk about Nipsey Hussle. Like he stepped out. That wasn't what he was supposed to be. Yeah. He was not supposed to be that. And what was he? Was he Ethiopian or was he?
I'm not even sure, but I know that he was definitely not the norm.
Or Eritrean. I'm not sure.
But even the way he carried himself was still like the norm. He chose a different path, but he still, kind of behaved like the norm.
And there is that pride in that. And I think when you go,
that
for
community.
A lot of people that go and experience the real of Africa, especially people who go alone, and they are able to be brought into the community, they come back with a sense of pride. And I think you wear the garments differently. You don't wear it just because everybody's wearing dashiki. Yeah. You wear it knowing that I am a part of the diaspora and I belong to this larger community. And you just, there is that pride. And I think it changes the way you feel about yourself and others. And so I encourage Black people, don't save your money and go to France. Save your money and go to Africa. I'm always pushing, there's an Africa for everyone. If you're not into roughing it out, go to South Africa. It is almost like going to the States. Go to Ghana, go to, some people want to go to Nigeria. Go to those places, find that Africa that works for you. Go to Mozambique, go to Mauritius, go to Tanzania, the coast of Tanzania, and go to Zanzibar. But find that place because there is an experience if you're open to it. Don't go to find yourself. Just go to learn. Because if you go to find yourself, you're not going to find yourself because we don't know what part, but go and learn. Because who we are is here. If you're African American, this is who we are. We are this, but part of our makeup is over there. And so you learn about the addition of who you are. Black people are the most American people. We are what it means to be American. And some of us, we've got white people in this, we've got this, and we've got that. And we've had to create the culture of what is America. So we are the most American people, but part of our DNA does fit over there in the great continent. And it just brings about this pride in the way you carry yourself, in the way you think. And you never have to feel ashamed. I think when you come back, you just feel this sense of, I belong to the world. I'm a citizen of the world and the world needs me. And that's the way I live my life, is that the world needs what I have to offer because, I am this product of Africa and the United States.
Well, I thank you for your time. We're going to have to do this again because I know we could also talk about being PKs and then also what it's like to work in ministry with our families. And so we have definitely have a lot to talk about. And I do thank you for this time, and want to just express my gratitude to who you have been to me over the years. It's one of those things where I don't just go to your page and be like, let me see what Mel talking about. But I can actually hit you up and shoot you a message and be like, sis, like, I'm feeling all sorts of ways. Help me make sense of this. Like, give me some wisdom. Like, where is this thing going? What do you feel like the Spirit is where do you feel the Spirit is leading? And I value that I'm able to write someone like yourself, and that we're able to dialogue and challenge each other and laugh too. Yes. Because we're both gonna laugh. And I also value the fact that you walk with such pride and carry a respect for the calling in the office as well, but also are not so caught up in it that if somebody didn't call you by the right term, it's all right. You don't step outside. It's like, hey, look, I'm Johnny, and whatever you call me is whatever you call me. I know who I am. Right. And over time, when we continue, maybe this portion of me will be able to impact you this way. But right now, like, I'm a child of God, and that's the best that I can be. Thank you for listening to part 4 of Made for Missions with Pastor Mel Perry. Tweet and post using the hashtag PastorJD03 or JD03 Podcast. We look forward to having future discussions with you on Pastor JD03, the podcast.